Hello! Today I will be featuring a cruiser that I highly recommended for this season, and it's been working extremely well, which was kind of to be expected, and that is of course the Cleveland, the Tier 6 US cruiser. Now, cruisers in general, of course, have a bit of an awkward situation in the current meta because it favors DDs and battleships so heavily. In general, you can't sail in the open at all in the cruiser because you can't deal with the damage you take from the battleships. You don't have the armor to tank it, you don't have the health pool to endure it. In general, though, you just have to play extremely safe. And what you see quite often these days is cruisers who haven't learned this. Cruisers who sail in the open and cruisers who get killed extremely early. Now, this game is especially, I think, important in that sense that it shows what happens to cruisers who try to sail in the open, and also how strong a cruiser can be if you understand to use this cover. Now, what's important about this game is that we actually don't have any DD. This is a bit of an odd game in that sense, that not a single DD. Usually, of course, on this map you want to contest B with the DD as soon as possible, and of course you try to kill the enemy DD as soon as possible. But since we don't have any DD, but both sides have a Leander, it's obvious that the Leander will be serving as kind of the DD. Concealment Expert Leander is quite stealthy, and of course it can smoke up and so forth, which makes it quite good at contesting these caps. However, our Leander decided to sail down south towards C, which I mean, it's a bit questionable. The problem here is mostly that we can't help him at all. We can't support him if he goes down there. But the idea of going down there, maybe focusing down on some spotter planes and then going into Cap B from there, might not necessarily be a bad idea. It might work out. The issue is mostly that, for example, this Dunkirk, who's behind an island, I can't even shoot at him. His positioning is very, very good. He's put an island between me and him, whereas he can shoot right into that gap where that Leander is. So he's made it very hard for us to support him by going down here, which is of course a bit awkward. Now, the Cleveland next to me is sailing to A. If you're sailing in the open, if you look at the minimap, you can see Cleveland next to me. If you sail in the open like this is a Cleveland, of course the idea is you should go and cap A, and you don't shoot, you don't want to get spotted, you just go there and cap it, and that's pretty much the end of the story. That's of course the smart way to play. You get the cap XP, you get personal XP, and you benefit your team. Great for everyone. However, it seems that he's firing, and you can see they are firing back at him, and this is of course the worst thing you can do. Caught in the open and firing as a cruiser is nightmare status. You should absolutely not do it. Luckily, the enemy Cleveland had the idea of pushing into B as well, which is of course something you cannot get away with in a cruiser. You don't have the concealment and you don't have the tankiness. He tries to reverse while angled, but once again, it doesn't matter what kind of moves he makes because he doesn't have the tankiness to survive this. So even though our Cleveland managed to get himself killed by the Dunkirk, instead of not firing and just using stealth to cap, he wanted to deal damage on the way, and of course he got punished for it. Luckily, the enemy Cleveland did the same mistake. He sailed in the open and he instantly died. So that's two Clevelands on both teams. You ever seen how incredibly quickly they disappear from the game if you don't use cover? Ours, he didn't even try to charge in, but he made a mistake of shooting in the open. Instantly deleted. Theirs, he tried to do some sort of pushing. You can't push in as a cruiser. It doesn't work in the current meta. I've been trying to tell people this all the time. If you want to play a cruiser in the current meta, you have to adapt to the fact that you need to use either friendly smokes or distance, aka you sit far enough away that you can dodge the incoming shells, but that is even that is very, very sketchy because RNG can screw you up. Or you use cover like I'm doing here. Now, for some reason, our Nuremberg decides he wants to charge into the cap, and our Warspite has also charged into B. And I'm just sitting here wondering what the hell is going on, because if they want to do some sort of planned push together, well, the two ships that should be in there are the battleships that are right next to me. But the cruisers should be behind the battleships. If there's no DDs around, then absolutely battleships need to be leading the charge. But the issue is here, well, Nürnberg is in the middle of the cap. He's not gonna live long. I mean, come on, Nürnberg? That is the squishiest tier 6 cruiser. He's instantly evaporated. That is the worst possible thing you can do, pushing in first as a Nürnberg. The word Nürnberg is one of the worst picks for this current season, and if you're going to play a Nürnberg, the only way you can make it somewhat work is using range, using smokes, and just kind of playing the bait. Everyone wants to shoot you because you're so squishy, and you sit at long range and just spam and kind of like absorb a lot of incoming fire by dodging it. That's the only way you can make it work. Sailing in like that, that's just suicide. So ideally, the whole point of Ardander going to the cap was he goes to the cap, he smokes up. Once he has the cap, he flees right away. He like sits at the edge and turns his ship around so he can flee as soon as he's got the cap. And then once he's got the cap, he sails away from the cap, and that's the end of the story. However, he decides to sit there. You see, they're still smoked, but they're still sitting still. They're sitting inside the cap. And the Warspite has decided to charge into the cap as well. So this is, of course, not how you're supposed to play, especially this map. And in fact, if we start looking at the chat, you can see Leander is charging, saying T, move forward, and I say no, just hold. Why would we push? First of all, if you're going to do a push, a coordinated push, it needs to be because the game is about to end and you're forced to do it, because it's usually not an optimal move in any way. Second of all, we have a capture advantage. We have 2 caps to 1. They need to push into B. We don't need to push into them. So that's another case against pushing. Third, look at the enemy positions. They are literally forming a horseshoe shape around B. You see, if you look at the minimap, you can see all these enemy ships in a horseshoe shape. Trying to push into B or through B puts you in such a horrible crossfire from every single angle. It's absolute suicide. There is no point pushing through B. It cannot work out. And third of all, if that push needed to happen, it should have been a coordinated team effort, and the Fuso and the Arizona, which are still at A, should have been one of the ships leading that charge. So now we're down to 3 versus 6. In fact, we only have 3 ships left, they have 6 ships left. And I literally ask, why are you fucking idiots charging in? Because do they not see the enemy formation? Do they not see the fact that we have a capture point lead? There is no point. And now they're calling, now the Leander is calling us fucking pussies, this is very common. If you don't charge in with your team, you are a coward. But these are one of those cases where people just need to realize it's strategically not sound at all. How can you angle against what they have right now? How can you take cover against what they have? You can't. What happens if you go into B is that you become a free target. So of course, I'm not going to do that. Now, important here, Budionni pushes through this flank, wants to fight me. Note that I'm angled, so that his AP mostly will struggle to get those big hits in on me. I'm angled enough that his AP will mostly be bouncing. Second of all, I'm not angled so much that I can't bring all my guns to bear, so I'm able to bring all my guns to bear on him. Third, take note of my positioning. I'm moving slightly, just enough to keep the island between me and the enemy ship so that I cannot get shot at. So what happens here is, well, he notices that his AP doesn't do enough damage, so he switches to HE, but in the meanwhile, I've been bringing my superior damage with all my guns to bear on him, and this 1 versus 1 between me and the Budionni, the superior firepower of the Cleveland, just completely murders him before he has a chance to do anything. I make sure he's dead before I repair the fire, and when I get the kill confirmed, that's when I pop the repair, because we don't want any permanent fires. And I use the cover to make sure no one else could shoot me. So what started as a 3 versus 6 is now a 3 versus 5. And now I can finally show you what the Cleveland is one of the best at the game at. The Cleveland has very floaty arcs. Now what this means is that the shell arc is this high arcing kind of thing, which makes it kind of hard to land shells at long range. But in return, it makes it especially good at utilizing cover. And because of the meta that we have right now, with tier 6, with cruisers being so squishy and unable to take damage, being able to arc your shells is amazingly valuable, because you can sit behind cover and just arc them over. Graf Speer tries to push in, Fuso deletes him. We are down from a 3 versus 6 to a 3 versus 4. I keep shooting various targets. as you can see, to keep resetting the cap. The more I reset the cap, the longer I reset the cap, the more time the enemy team has to spend inside B. Because once again, we have the capture point advantage, which means that the ball is in the enemy court. They have to push into B. They have to flip that cap in order to gain that advantage. Meanwhile, I'm farming. I'm straight up farming. I'm just dealing damage from this cover. They can't do anything about me. I'm using the island cover next to me, and if you look at the minimap, you can see that I'm of course using the perk that doubles your fighter planes. So instead of just having one fighter plane around, I have 2 fighter planes around. So you can see double fighter planes circling around and giving me all this vision. I don't need any spotters. In fact, Arizona and Fuso are both extremely far away. They can't spot anything, but I don't need it because my double fighter planes are spotting everything for me. And look at this damage. This is of course my recommended Cleveland build, which includes not just Demo Expert, but also IFHE. So on a ship like the Dunkirk, which is one of the ships I don't recommend for basically one of these reasons, is the fact you can see I only get penetrations. There's no shatters, no shattered HE shells at all. It's all penetrations, because that ship is pretty much only clad in that armor. Only if I hit the broadside, like literally the broadside armor, and not the top of his ship, will I get any shatters. Other than that, it's pretty much purely penetrations. I do get, they pop their planes to spot me, but of course this build that I recommended in Cleveland has 7.2 km AA range. So as soon as I pop defensive AA, and I keep sniping all these planes, and I'm undetected again. That's 2 planes I sniped that both tried to spot me, and I go dark again using island cover. At this point, the enemy team has managed to cap, but they keep trying to make this push work. Now at this point, this could still be a losing position for our team. Well, it could be a very hard game for our team if the enemy team, the Leander final, or the Arizona says nice, and this is, then I write in chat, this is why you don't push, so you can utilize this cover. You can see the crossfire as well. I have an Arizona behind me and a Fuso on my left. Any team trying to push has to angle against both of those. And while they're trying to angle and survive, I'm hammering them non-stop with HE. Here you can see, by the way, one of the reasons why I consider Fuso extremely strong. And that is, of course, the HE damage that I deal to the Fuso. The Fuso is one of those few ships that, even though I land hits on his superstructure, you see how many shatters I got. That was a 10-hit volley. I got 6 shatters and once again 5 shatters. If you look at the right, you can see the shattered shells. And the reason why you get this many shattered shells is because the Fuso is one of those ships that has an extremely strong deck armor. And even with IFHE, you can't pen it. And that's of course why the Fuso is exceptionally durable compared to pretty much all other battleships when it comes to enduring HE spam. And that's of course one of the reasons why it's very popular this season, but I thought this was worth pointing out since we get such a good example. You saw how much damage I did to the Dunkirk, and then you see how pitifully little damage I do to the Fuso. However, with this rate of fire that you have in the Cleveland, especially since I am less than half HP, which of course means that I have AR kicking in big time, I will be starting plenty of fires here, and even the low damage that I deal is still damage. At this point, the Fuso tries to reverse, tries to back off, tries to survive, and I think you'll get a nice comparison now after seeing how little damage I did to Fuso. Move on to the next target. Not detected, they can't shoot me. I burn down the Fuso, and now you can see Arizona start dying. And if you notice chat, they say rename, that is some brilliant work, well done. And this entire game, or this situation where we would have had to come back from a 3 versus 6 would never have happened. I think it's pretty funny that they think I'm Flambas, because usually on the EU server people think Flambas is me, so I think it's pretty amusing here on the NA server. They think the rename I am Flambas. It's kind of that it doesn't go that way too often, and I think that's pretty funny. Anyway, this entire situation wouldn't have happened if my team hadn't tried so desperately to push in. In fact, on this map, if you don't have any DDs, you don't need to get B. There's no need to get B. Just hold good positions and punish anyone trying to take B. Just take control of A and then hold positions around B and just try to punish the enemy team pushing in. He tries to blind fire me, but with so much island cover, he can't arc his shells over that island. I can arc my shells over it easily, and I burn down the 4th kill here, and the Leander, which was the last shipper alive, gets killed by the Fuso. And just like that, the game ends. It looked like a 3 versus 6. Oh well, it was a 3 versus 6, and we still managed to turn it into a victory. And this earned me, what, rank 8, 1 star. And looking at the damage dealt, 137k damage, high caliber, 4 kills in total. And this, of course, I think this game, especially if you go and look at the team score, it showed the difference between, you can see the 2 Clevelands. We had one additional Cleveland, they had a Cleveland. You can see these Clevelands, how quickly they died and how little impact they had on the game. And that's because they attempted to sail around in the open. And that's what happens when you try to sail around in the cruiser in this current meta. You cannot do it. You do not survive. You don't have the tankiness. You don't have the health pool. There is no value in trying to sail around in the open. You must use cover. That is the fundamental of playing a cruiser in this current ranked season. You think it's boring hiding behind islands? You think it's boring hiding behind smokes? Then don't play a cruiser, because that's the only way you can survive in this current meta. And in this current ranked season, because you got this massive firepower of 380mm guns that either pin through your entire ship and citadel you regardless of angle, or you got Fusos and New Mexicos and Arizonas that launch these 12 shell volleys that every single volley has a chance to devastating strike you. It's not a fun meta for the cruisers. And it's not something you can survive in the open. You must use cover. If you think that's cowardly gameplay, well then play it, because that's the only way you can survive it. And looking at damage dealt, well, you can see actually my damage upon your spotting. 53,000 damage upon my spotting, and that's just the fighter planes. I hid behind an island, and I still probably did the most spotting out of my team, and that's only because of those fighter planes. They gave 53,000 damage spotting. Very little potential damage. The damage I took was mostly from 1v1ing the Budioni that I killed. I actually did his full health pool of damage, 30.8k, and you can see the damage dealt to pretty much everyone on the enemy team from that cover. And not that much fire damage, 16 fires, but only 29k damage. Pretty much all of it came from that pure IFHE pen damage. Anyway, let me show you my recommended build. I still use the same one I use for random battles, because I find it so very strong for both ranked and random as well. Alright, as usual, we start off with the modules. Upgrade wise, well, honestly you shouldn't be bringing a stock ship to begin with, but upgrade wise you probably want to get range as soon as possible and then follow it up with the gun upgrade. Honestly, this shouldn't even be a discussion. You shouldn't be bringing stock ships to ranked. Upgrade wise, priority damage control, followed by fighter plane, followed by defensive AA. The reason, of course, why I prioritize catapult fighter is because this is ranked, and it gives you so much spotting. And defensive AA is so very good at sniping in these spotting and fighting planes instantly, so that you can maintain your position and remain undetected, as you saw me do in that game earlier. Upgrade wise, priority 1, main armaments mod, AA gun range, absolutely, followed by tankiness, followed by rudder shift, so you can get the rudder shift down to a nice 5.8 seconds. Follow that up with the captain perks. Priority 1 is absolutely priority target. You need to see when you're being targeted, you need to see when how many people are focusing you, and so forth. Follow it up with AR for faster reload, follow it up with demolition expert, better fire chance, then get concealment expert. This is so important to be able to disengage if need be, if the map doesn't favor you, if you get pushed from the flank. Survivability always comes first for a cruiser. Once you have concealment expert, then absolutely spec IFHE, which is such a great direct damage boost. And once you have IFHE, follow it up with AFT, that increased AA range. If you do happen to fight a carrier, you will shred planes just by having AFT and this other thing, the AA range. And the last point into those double fighter planes, which are so very useful. Not quite as useful in randoms. In fact, in randoms I think I spec preventive maintenance instead. But for ranked, direction center is absolutely top tier. And of course, when you have these both AFT things, you get a nice 7.2 km range on your AA. And when you consider that your detectability range by air is 7.1 if you're not firing, that means that the only way you can be spotted by planes is if they enter your anti-air range. And if you have defensive AA like I do, anytime you're spotted by planes, you can just pop defensive AA and you can snipe that plane down, which is of course the beauty of this entire Cleveland build. And finally, flags. Flag-wise, signal-wise, priority number 1 is probably, I would say, speed. Get into that position as soon as possible and be able to disengage from the position if need be. The 2 fire chance flags are absolutely great on this ship. With running both of those and Demolition Expert, even if you run IFHE, you still maintain a pretty nice 12% fire chance, which combined with the firepower you have means that you're pretty damn nasty at starting fires. Demolition flag, if you have enough of them, it's not a bad idea to run one on for ranked. For randoms I would never bother, but for ranked you could easily, if you have these to spare, run them on the cruiser, because trust me, getting detonated by a stray shell will piss you off. AA, might as well buff it. It's 10%, which, considering you already have such good anti-air, is a very considerable buff. But besides these flags, I guess reduction in fire duration if you end up fighting other ships that spam HE as well. But other than that, there's no real priority flags that you should be running. Anyway, that was my Cleveland commentary. I hope you guys enjoyed it.